A couple unique rules when you try and join two squares together. For two squares to be joined together and considered as one unified formation, they must start the turn, or the movement phase in particular, directly adjacent, i.e. touching each other. If there's any gaps between the squares, they cannot uniformly join each other, because the act of junction or joining the two units together is a requirement of the facing and formation phase of the movement turn. Therefore, you have to be directly touching each other. So if the Austrians and the French wish to join together as one square, in one movement phase, you'd have to put the figures directly adjacent to each other. And then when you get the next movement phase, right at the beginning, when there's a facing and formation change, you would declare both battalions to be one large square, in this case of 18 figures. But if they start set with a gap between them, pretty much more than a quarter inch, therefore they cannot be joined in that movement phase. They have to start adjacent. Now we have this artillery battery over here, and let's say they want to come over and join this square. And artillery is unique in that you can have it join a square and have the guns deployed in all four faces of the square and fire out of the square with 1/3 effectiveness of the number of cannon in the battery. So if this is an 8-gun battery, this French 8-pounder, it would fire with the equivalent of 3 cannons, 360-degree arc outside of the directions of the square's facings. If it wished to, it would just move up, be within 4 in a normal move, declare that it's going to deploy its guns around the square, i.e. join the square, and the gunner figure is placed in the square. And the actual gun base is placed off on the side of the gaming board. As long as the guns remain in the square, only the gunner figure is going to be representative on the table. This also applies if you have a morale disordered gun. And this is fairly unique, because normally you're not allowed to mix a morale disordered unit with a good order unit. Same thing would apply for a rout. You can obviously not mix a rout in with anybody. Normally, close order units, if either of the units is in a state of morale disorder, and you combine them together into a square, then both units are automatically assumed to be in morale disorder in any upcoming shock combat. You can't have half the square running around with their heads like chickens being cut off, and at the same time have the other half hold their ground. The square just would not function. It would just collapse automatically. So if there's a case of a morale disorder in the square, then all units are considered to be in morale disorder. So normally, from a player's point of view, you will always keep your units separated if one unit's in a morale disordered situation. Keep the other one intact. But for artillery, if it's a morale disordered situation, it may join the square, pull off the gun, put the gunner in there. The exception being is when the gunners are in a morale disordered state, they are not in a position to fire their cannon at any outside targets. So therefore they may not use the 1/3 battery rule, or 1/3 of the cannon, to fire outwards until they regain satisfactory good morale. Once they've rallied up and are in good morale, then they are assumed to have their cannons deployed on the outer edges of the perimeter of the square and may fire the 1/3 of the cannon.